If your vision or flow clarity are low and your ability to distill and deliver are low, you're going to be in what we call a state of anti-flow. Your team's going to be struggling at best, or maybe going through the motions. But you won't be delivering anything close to the vision of what the executives want, what your product owner wants, what your team knows that they should deliver. Now, you could end up in a situation there in the upper left box where you have really clear vision. It could even be the right vision, but your delivery, okay, your ability to distill and deliver is so weak that even though you have the right vision, you get the wrong results. Okay, and so yeah, you could end up with division because of that. And so oftentimes I feel like that could be, well, it could be either both traditional or agile, since they both fail. Traditional fails up to 86% of the time. Agile fails up to 58% of the time. And so when you look at that, the reason that they fail is most likely that their delivery portion of what they're doing is very weak. Now, sort of on the flip side of that, you could have the wrong vision. I've seen a lot of products come to market and die a quick, painful death where they had the wrong vision, but they had strong delivery. All right, they're able to get the products out the door, but they still end up with the wrong results because they didn't increase sales or save costs or get rid of mitigate risk for the customer or themselves. And so I've seen this happen. We saw a software that was developed for one of our customers. We didn't develop it, another team developed it. And they developed it in a vacuum. They spent millions of dollars on this software. It was for engineering specials. And it was a parallel team to one of the teams that we were working with for doing quotes and trying to get the quotation process smoothed out in the company, creating a Salesforce automation system and a customer relationship management system. And they developed this software, spent millions of dollars on it, and the engineers that developed it rolled it out to the Salesforce. And okay, this is mid to end 90s. Care to guess how many of the salespeople actually use that tool? That's right, 0. Nobody used it. And so they were able to, they had a vision. It was the wrong vision. They never talked to the customer. They had strong delivery, and they delivered it after spending a couple $1,000,000, but they got the wrong results because in the end, it added absolutely 0 value to the company. So another case is one of the customers we worked with just in the last few years. We were looking at this, and they had incredibly strong delivery. They'd been doing Agile for 8 or 9 years. They had been trained by some of the best Agilists on the planet. And the teams were able to deliver. Problem was that the product ownership and the product organization, as well as the leadership, weren't seeing eye to eye. They didn't have a common vision for what needed to be delivered. And so the teams were getting absolutely demoralized because they were quickly delivering, but they were delivering the wrong thing. And so it didn't match the vision of the product organization, and it didn't match the vision of the executives or the leadership. And so they ended up with wrong results again. So getting to flow, you'll notice it's only one box. You have to have a clear vision first. It has to be consistently communicated. It needs to be there. If you don't have the clarity of vision and the clarity of how it will flow through the organization, then you can't get into that upper right corner. So you have to have a clear vision, clear purpose, clear mission, clear flow if you want to get up there. And then you have to have the ability to deliver it. You have to be able to distill and deliver exactly what it is that that vision is telling us that we should deliver. If you achieve that, you will achieve remarkable results. Your customers will be delighted. You'll get to market faster. And this is the difference between being in a state of flow versus everything else, which is either giving you the wrong results or is a complete state of anti-flow. And I think almost every one of us who's listening to this, you'll be able to go, yeah, I've seen exactly every one of these as examples in various projects and organizations with which I've worked during the last X number of years. Everybody has their stories about this. Now, in this section, we're going to talk about Agile management coaching, which I've blended together. It's actually a combination of Agile coaching and management consulting. Now, the purists will tell you that it's either or. I'm a pragmatist, and I'm telling you it's both and. And I think I can make a relatively good case before this whole slide deck is completed. I think I can make a pretty good case of why that is the case. Okay? And we'll start with the next slide to get the ball rolling on this section. It's a both and. It's both Agile coaching and management consulting. It's not either or. We need the Agile coaching. We need the ideas that come from Agile coaching and from Agile. We need the innovation, the anticipatory vision, and we need the management consulting skills that have everything to do with operational excellence. Remember what I mentioned? If you think about the Sinefin diagram or the Stacy diagram, as you're moving from chaos to complex to complicated back down to simple, all management consulting is taking those various practices and distilling them down to the most simple, best practice, because it's a repeatable pattern that the company can do in order to deal with the simplicity, the complexity, the complex, and even the chaotic that happens in their organization every day. And that's the basic foundation of why management consultants exist, is to help companies achieve that simplicity, to help them achieve operational excellence with best practice that can be duplicated over and over again. Now, the Agilists do the same thing, because that's the whole point of Scrum, for example, where you've got your product backlog, and then you have sprint planning, and you create the sprint backlog, and then you go through the sprint with the daily stand-ups, or daily standoffs, as one of our friends from China used to call it. I thought that was pretty good. And at the end, you do a review or a demo, and then a retrospective. And we're going to talk about how to overlay flow on top of that a little bit later, and also in the section on, or the video series that I'm going to do on flow-based Scrum and Agile. Now, a really good example of this figure 8 for innovation, anticipatory vision, and then operational excellence is Nokia. In the early 90s, Nokia was making rubber boots and rubber tires for cars. And they did a really good job of those. Really good boots. They're really well made. And they had their niche in the market. But the leadership team, they're looking around and they went, oh, well, we need to be able to look at what's the future, and is there some creative destruction that we could do and take ourselves into a completely new line of business and achieve operational excellence and be able to satisfy and delight our customers. And they looked around and they went, cell phones. And in 10 or 15 years, Nokia achieved absolutely stunning, remarkable results with a single focus on we're going to make the best cell phones in the world. And as they built up their brand and built up their organization, they shifted from innovation over to operational excellence. But what's interesting is around 2004, they had in their hands a touchscreen phone with a glass surface. It was roughly the size of an iPhone 5, maybe a little wider, shorter, and a little bit fatter. But in any case, it was a smaller version of a Palm Pilot that had been fused with a Nokia 6100 or a 6 series Nokia, whatever it was. And they had it. They had the touch screen ready to go in their hands. And the leadership, they were at operational excellence. When they asked me about it, I said, hey guys, I drew 3 arcs. I've told this story before. I wrote one at the end of the first arc and then another arc slightly higher with a 10 and the third arc a little bit higher on the whiteboard with 100. And the executives went, oh, what's that? I said, well, the first Apple will probably sell 1 million units. The second version will probably sell somewhere around 10 million units. Third version, they'll sell 100 million units, and at that point, you're dead. And they laughed at me. They're, oh, Andrew, we own Asia, we own Africa, we own Europe. We deliver 462 million handsets a year. They were operationally excellent. And I just looked at the guys and I said, well, you guys know best. You probably know a lot more than I do. That's why you get the big bucks. And, we'll see. 2 years later, the head of marketing, he was in the meeting. He sends me an email. I think his name was Marco. He goes, Andrew, you were right. I sent an email back to Marco. Marco, what difference does it make? Nobody listened. He sent a note back. Hey, can I share that with your man? I'm like, help yourself. Go ahead. I mean, if nobody listens to the advice, if you've got somebody who had that flash of brilliance where the soft trends, the hard trends came together in their head, they were not just being reactive or proactive or preactive, they were seeing beyond the horizon what was coming. And the guys, when they were mocking me, the leadership, they were like, well, it doesn't even have an alarm clock on it. And the thing that they missed that utterly destroyed them in the end was they couldn't compete with the ecosystem that Apple was creating. Apple created a ecosystem of millions of programmers working for free with the hopes that their application would make them a millionaire. Not Apple, but the programmer. And so all of a sudden, there's millions of applications out there. And there's no way that if Nokia had applied all their resources that they had to try to duplicate that internally, which is what they tried to do, there's no way that they could compete. And they got blown off the market because of arrogance and pride. And so when you're looking at this, and I'm looking at this, and I see Agile coaching, there's a lot of Agile purists out there that are extremely proud. But I've also watched as these startups scale, like Spotify, when they got to 750 people and they're trying to scale up to 3,500 people, they were moving from innovation and anticipatory vision over to operational excellence. Well, guess what? The ways that companies take entrepreneurial organizations and then move over into more mature organizations, now you're looking at operational excellence. Now you're looking at vision, strategy, people, and tasks, which you see there in the middle. And we'll probably come back and talk about that one again a little bit later. But it all has to be driven by vision. And if you miss in the figure 8, when it's time to do creative destruction, it could bode very badly for your organization. So, as we're looking at this, and as I was looking at this, I saw this, another version of this demonstrated at a Agile conference a few years ago. And I realized that, oh wow, you can take the 4D model and apply it to the left and to the right and create an infinite loop. And so with anticipatory vision and innovation, you need to define it, distill it, deliver it, and then drive it by linking it back to the vision that we have there in the middle. And then, as the company continues to grow and become more mature, you still need to use the 4D model for all of the projects and programs and processes and business operations and portfolio management that you're going to do. Now you've got a whole nother set of definitions that you need to distill and deliver and drive. And again, driving is linking all of those back to the vision and continually double checking those against the vision. On the left, they define that as the ability to see and to disrupt.